Hello folks, and Fáilte Roibh Ríist. Welcome along to another video from Gundog and Fly, and this time it's a fly tying video. Following on from my last video, which was the Sage LL and the Sherry Spinner, got a great response to that video as it happens, and a lot of people have been asking me to tie the Sherry Spinner, so this is it. Just a little bit of background on the Sherry Spinner. The Sherry Spinner, for those of you who are not aware, is the female of the blue-winged olive species. They go back to the river late in the evening, usually, to lay their eggs, and when they lay their eggs, they die, and their wings lie flat out on the surface. The trout love the Sherry Spinner, and they feed avidly on it, and it's my favourite fly. I catch a lot of fish on the Sherry Spinner. So it's an easy fly to tie, very, very simple. It's in a size 18, and this is how it's done. Okay, the tying of a Sherry Spinner is probably one of the easiest flies of all to tie. Very simple. Anyone with any modicum of experience tying flies will easily tie this fly. Size 18 dry fly hook. Makes no difference what make it is, as long as it's light. It needs to be as light as possible. The thread I'm using is the uni thread in olive, and it's 8/0. Again, it doesn't really matter what colour thread you use to tie this fly. I'm just using this for the sake of convenience. So start off here just behind the eye and lay down a little bed of thread, and I'm coming back up until I'm about a third of the way along the hook shank from the eye. Now, the wing is made of this stuff here. I'm using Antron, made by Lure Flash in this case, but you don't necessarily have to have Lure Flash. It just needs to be white Antron. And tie in there like that, and then figure of 8 around the wings to hold them in place. Now, the length of the wings, the best way to describe it is they're roughly the same length as the body, but in order to get that, it requires maybe a little bit of experimentation, or in my case I have enough experience to know that if I cut it here, they'll be the ideal length. So probably if you're a beginner fly tyer, that when you hold them up like this to cut them a little bit long, and then you can progressively shorten it until you get the right length. Now back along to the bend of the hook, and I'm going to tie in a tail. In this case I'm going to use black hackle fibres, approximately 4 or 5, maybe half a dozen. And the tail on a spinner is slightly longer than a standard fly, we'll call it. So just tie in our tail there. Now you can go to all kinds of elaborations with the tail. You can make a forked tail by manipulating, and it's not really necessary because the trout don't seem to mind whether or not there's a forked tail or, like in this case, just a straight tail. So from the point of view of simplification, just keep the tail straight like that. Now the body is made from dubbin, which I mix up. The colour is sort of a very dark orange, leaning towards the darkest orange you can find, sort of, if you like, dark orange, sort of brick colour, red brick colour, if you know what I mean. Now I'm going to dub on a nice tight rope of orange dubbin, and then in touching turns forward along the hook shank until I meet the wings, and then now again figure of 8, and then come in front and build up that nice little head. Now whip finish, and a second knot just for security. And that, folks, is Sherry Spinner. Very simple fly to tie, and one of the most effective trout catchers that I know of. So that's it, folks, and now I'm just going to talk a little bit more about this fly and the presentation of it. Now, like all flies, the sherry spinner is only as good as how you present it. It's a brilliant fly, absolutely brilliant, and trout are completely convinced by it. That's provided that you present it properly. Simple to tie, easy to make up. Anyone with any level of experience of fly tying will easily make this fly. As I say, the presentation is the most important thing. When you're fishing this fly, and when the trout are taking this fly, they're very high in the water. They sort of sit right under the surface and they just barely break the surface to take this fly. The rises sometimes are just barely discernible. So you need to be close to your quarry so that you can see them taking this fly. Also, because this fly lies flat in the surface film, it can be difficult to see. So what I do, in order, if the light is fading, which it usually is, that's the time when the trout take this fly, what I do is I stop the line in the air, and then I watch the fall of the fly, and where I see the fly fall, then I can track it. Even though I may not be able to actually see it, I'll have a fair idea where the fly actually is as it tracks towards me. So that's the sherry spinner. I hope you enjoyed the video. Tie it up, give it a go, and as I always say, get nice and close. Get as close as you possibly can, and that will increase your chances of catching the trout. So once again, thanks very much for joining me. Get tying the sherry spinner, don't be without it in your fly box, and Godi ga Casper ar a chéile a Rishmid Bigi Egi Skrocht Slán go fóil.